the day the beasts descended upon the realm. The epic of valiant adventurers had dawned, heralding a new chapter in a world fraught with peril. The metamorphosis into an adventurer resembled the drawing of cards in an intricate game. Each aspiring hero yearned for the elusive rare character and the most coveted equipment. Fortune smiled upon one, as the board before our protagonist glimmered with a congratulatory message. His unique talent? A gold digger. Alas, his physique lacked the fortitude to harness magical prowess. He was deemed incapable of possessing a specialty. Will he not possess a specialty? A voice queried, dripping with skepticism. What of his beloved? Why doesn't she offer him companionship? With no riches, no formidable abilities, his survival in this treacherous realm seemed a stroke of unlikely luck. For now, he clung to the dream of becoming an adventurer. In a world that deemed him worthless, he was met with disdain. Die, wretched fool. Go to the abyss, taunted a passerby. Shen, the protagonist, was cornered. He surveyed his surroundings, dread gnawing at him. Where am I? It was murmured that he was promised sanctuary here. Yet, this was the Underworld, a realm of horrors. As he glanced at his reflection, he beheld a colossal door, bound by ominous chains, a gateway from which the most dreadful creatures emerged. What will you choose? Someone repeated, urgency in their tone. A quest board manifested before him, inscribed with a singular mission: locate the true head of the King of Hell from a multitude of contenders. Time was not on his side. The reward, a potion capable of mending all wounds, beckoned. Yet, failure meant death, casting a shadow of despair. The protagonist pondered, could he ascend to command the souls of the underworld? He refused to perish in City R, Country H, where myriad professions flourished, yet the choices were often confined to a restrictive menu. Even the most diligent could find themselves perpetually beneath those who towered over them. Some triumphed through sheer determination, while others faltered, often a reflection of their environment. Entering an equipment emporium, he was greeted with a perfunctory welcome. Chi-Chin approached the armor, his fingers grazing the cold metal, nostalgia washing over him. Each visit stirred his aspiration to don such gear. Yet, he was not an adventurer, at least not yet. He diligently recorded notes, contemplating his enhancements. Had his magic resistance improved? The appearance of his gear had certainly evolved. Excuse me, young master, the shopkeeper interjected, time is of the essence. We have guild applications to process. He tossed a coin idly, reflecting on the newcomers who were desperately seeking fortune through him. Reject the refuse, he muttered dismissively. A store assistant approached, cheerfully announcing the arrival of new products. Although pressed for time, he instructed her to select the finest for inspection. As they perused the armory, she highlighted the latest series designed for the most arduous of trials. This weapon has been fortified against poison and frost, she explained. With notebook in hand, the protagonist scrutinized the array before him, contemplating the adventurer's intentions. Is this fellow a reporter? A bystander speculated. Nay, he simply visits to gaze longingly without purchasing, the girl retorted, noting his lack of ambition, merely a third-tier adventurer. Heen sidled closer, gazing up with curiosity. Do you seek something? The adventurer activated his perception ability, revealing a board that displayed Shen's level as 3, with a dismal record of 0 cleared portals. What are you comparing? Who sent you here? He interrogated, disdain evident in his voice. Do not touch me, he exclaimed, incredulous. A tear escaped his eye, overwhelmed by the magical aura. The adventurer, now irate, summoned his equipment, warning Shen against touching him before delivering a punishing blow to his midsection. Foolish boy, he reprimanded, looming over the defeated protagonist. If you desire something, earn it instead of squandering your time. Concern washed over the store employee as she rushed to Shen, alarmed by the blood. Are you all right? She implored. I'm fine, he replied, though the pain resonated. Heen directed a finger at the adventurer, warning him to keep his distance or face dire consequences. As Shen exited, he reflected upon the man, a formidable figure from a powerful guild. It was prudent to remain uninvolved with him. He was but an adventurer at level 3, a title that bore no promise of success. an adventurer lacking specialization was destined for obscurity. Strange portals had materialized across the globe, drawing the attention of experts far and wide. Initially, mere monsters emerged from these rifts, yet their numbers swelled uncontrollably. Nations banded together, forming a military coalition, yet even the most advanced weaponry proved futile. Just before nuclear options could be considered, warriors emerged, displaying extraordinary prowess in their battles against the beasts. Thus, the specialization known as adventurers was born, granting ordinary individuals the opportunity to transition into this new profession through vanquishing their first monster, or right akin to gaining rare characters or rewards in a game. The industry burgeoned over the years, cultivating adventurers endowed with exceptional talent. They became the shining stars and idols, while everyday players clung to survival amidst the chaos. The Adventurer Guild enacted an effective system, underscoring the significance of talent, power, and wealth. The less fortunate faced grim fates, often falling prey during hunts, yet authorities offered a meager glimmer of hope. In a forsaken field, a cadre of formidable figures stood, a level 20 fire mage, a level 20 defender, and a level 21 warrior, while above Shin, a sign labeled him a mere level 3 nobody. Why are the teams so potent for today's raid? He pondered, alarmed at the high difficulty. Will everything be alright? A member of the group waved exuberantly, Shin, over here. As he approached, camaraderie blossomed. How could we miss this? They exclaimed, recognizing the potential of the task at hand. Shen's curiosity piqued. He retrieved his notebook, pondering the dungeon's peculiarities. Could it be something extraordinary? Is it merely an E-rank dungeon? He inquired, skepticism lacing his voice. I expected at least a C or D rank, he mused. The task likely isn't overly taxing, otherwise, they wouldn't seek those below level 10. As he jotted down his thoughts, a level 6 healer interjected, teasing him for his notebook fixation. Even if there's treasure inside, we might not procure anything. Why bother? She remarked. Shin snapped his notebook shut, a grin illuminating his face. There's value in recording minerals and details, knowledge is power, and you never know when it could prove beneficial. Yet we lack the capability to clear dungeons, she countered, so what's the point? Undeterred, Shin replied, the dangers lurking within demand awareness. The more knowledge I acquire, the greater my chances of survival. One day, I will be the adventurer who conquers perilous realms. His gaze drifted toward the portal's entrance, where he emerged, a wicked smile gracing his lips. Everyone is here, young master, he called, concealing his gear. We'll depart shortly. Shin contemplated the adventurer he recognized from the store, wondering at his sudden presence. He praised the girl for their past success and suggested they retrieve supplies from the warehouse post mission, thanking her in turn. But as Heen turned to Shin, their eyes met, and the tension thickened. We're leaving, he stated brusquely. Yet before Shin could escape, the adventurer seized him by the shoulder, incredulity etched on his features. Have you chosen to disregard my warnings? Do you not comprehend the consequences of your defiance? In a tumultuous encounter, they confronted Shin, forcefully casting his hand aside while vociferously declaring that the matter at hand was none of his concern and that he ought to be left undisturbed. A smirk played upon his lips as he seized Shin by the hair, taunting him for being bothersome. Moments later, he landed a fierce blow to Shin's abdomen, causing blood to seep from the protagonist's mouth in the aftermath of the strike. Heen, conjuring a fireball in his palm, brandished it menacingly while admonishing Shin for his incompetence, warning that if provoked further, he would gladly crush his foolish head right there, with no one to intervene. Shin's very existence was seemingly sustained solely by Heen's reluctant mercy. Shin gasped for breath, overwhelmed by a sudden fit of coughs, his mind racing with the realization that he had hired these mercenaries for this very task. An adventurer nearby inquired about his condition, noting his cough and the pallor of his face, yet another voice erupted in protest, insisting that Shin be released or else they would alert the association. Did Heen believe his superior would allow such misconduct to transpire? With a flick of his wrist, Heen propelled a fireball into the sky, inciting screams of terror from the onlookers. A girl, her expression one of indignation, implored Mr. Lee not to jest in front of the security officer. He feigned innocence, exclaiming that his hand had simply slipped, leaning closer to the protagonist with a derisive grin. He mocked Chin's aspirations of becoming an adventurer, casting him as a pathetic figure devoid of talent, questioning the very essence of his existence. "Should I offer assistance?" he jeered. Fury coursed through Chin as he regained his footing, rushing towards Heen with a desperate plea, "Are you all right?" The adventurer stood alongside the officer nearby, offering her a drink, a gesture she accepted gratefully. The fire mage observed the scene, a smile tugging at his lips as he remarked on the peculiar hobby of tormenting a helpless youth. Turning to Heen, he queried whether he should intervene, to which Heen nonchalantly acquiesced. Suddenly, the warrior, brandishing a massive sword, bellowed that it was time to commence their mission. The portal, classified as level E, was deemed appropriate for adventurers of levels 3 to 5, and the monsters within had already been vanquished. There was nothing to fear. Chin, casting a worried glance at CH, sought reassurance regarding his well-being. "All is well," came the reply, clarifying that the portal led to a magical realm. By evaluating the magic leakage, they could ascertain the precise classification of the dungeon, ranging from levels A to E. Chin had only encountered E and D, where level E was suitable for adventurers of levels 1 to 5, primarily for mineral collection rather than monster hunting. Typically, adventurers engaged in this type of labor were under level 10, often labeled as failures, reliant on employment by others to access the dungeons. The portal would seal upon the completion of their tasks, with loot and materials not returning to them. Yet, any contact with magic triggered an agonizing rejection reaction within him. Despite the excruciating pain, survival was paramount amidst the Tower of Oblivion. As adventurers passed through the portal, blood trickled from the protagonist's nose, forcing him to his knees, clutching his chest as he lamented, "This feeling again." Chin, extending his hands, screamed in terror at the sight of his friend's distress. "What's happening to him?" he heard someone ask. The fire mage, observing the unfolding chaos, remarked on the plight of the abandoned adventurer. The protector, sporting a smirk, found amusement in the scenario, attributing the protagonist's failures to his illness. Otherwise, he would have been fighting monsters by now. Wiping the blood from his face, the protagonist steeled himself, determined to begin anew. Jean, gripping a pickaxe, scanned the area, questioning the whereabouts of their missing member. He was hard at work, furiously collecting nearby crystals, prompting Changho to express concern for his well-being, especially after witnessing him expel blood. Cole interjected, revealing the grim distinction of an abandoned adventurer, a fate tied to the awakening ceremony, a rare chance to acquire hidden specialization, accompanied by a debilitating disease. As levels escalated, the afflicted individual's strength would reject magic, resulting in excruciating pain, and in the direst of cases, damage to internal organs. Many perished mid-battle, even with healing attempts proving futile. The protagonist, a level 3, had traversed numerous portals, accumulating experience that could have propelled him to become one of the mightiest adventurers if not for his debilitating condition. Chin persevered, teeth gritted against the pain, sweat cascading down his brow. Lacking the ability to fight, he relied on his scant experience to level up. The magical affliction could be remedied, but the exorbitant cost was beyond his means. He rummaged through his pocket, retrieving a crumpled notice proclaiming recruitment by an adventurers' guild seeking individuals to strategize routes and tactics for dungeon navigation. With aspirations to earn money, heal himself, acquire equipment, and ultimately join the guild, he clutched the notice tightly, vowing to become an adventurer. Time passed as he gathered an impressive haul of crystals, prompting inquiries about their impending departure. Lingering too long could spell disaster, particularly if monsters emerged. The protagonist turned, a sense of foreboding washing over him as he fixated on the tower looming in the distance, sensing an ominous magic emanating from it. Is this the final boss room? He pondered, contemplating the necessity of closing the portal and vanquishing the dungeon's denizens. Sudden force jolted him from his thoughts. Chin dashed towards him, indignant. The fire mage cautioned against anger, claiming the boss had ordered them to ensure Chin's demise. The warrior, sword slung over his shoulder, warned that if the others wished to survive, they ought to distance themselves from him. Clenching his teeth, the protagonist wrestled with confusion and rage. What had he done to deserve such treatment? He pressed against the site of impact as the mage revealed that the boss had proclaimed his magical disease as a mark of disgrace, thus instructing them to eliminate him. Chin pondered whether his very existence was a transgression. Rising defiantly, he was met with Chin's frantic calls for calm. Are they all mad? He thought, grappling with the absurdity of the situation. As the mage concentrated energy in his hands, the tension mounted. Seeking to become an adventurer amidst this unbearable agony, the protagonist questioned whether he could endure. The mage, intent on using high-level magic to liberate him from suffering, offered a twisted version of assistance. Shin's resolve hardened. He recognized the mage's intentions as nothing more than a display of cruelty, a criminal relishing the torment of a desperate soul fighting for a future. Who do they think they are? He seethed inwardly, confronting the audacity of those who toyed with human lives. Meanwhile, in a distant vehicle, discussions unfolded, suggesting that to mitigate competition, resources should be allocated to low-ranking adventurers. Heen, with a smile, expressed indifference towards the fate of the trash, emphasizing that the disappearance of a few would elicit no concern. Warnings were issued to ensure the inspection department did not initiate an inquiry, to which Heen responded with confidence that such an occurrence was improbable. His smirk betrayed a sinister anticipation none would emerge unscathed. In that moment, the protagonist internalized a bitter truth: the world revolved around the powerful. A fireball soared toward him, and he instinctively dodged, realizing it was a level 3 skill aimed at his destruction. Flames consumed his body as the mage reveled in his mischief, proclaiming the youth to be a crafty opponent. Yet, Shin emerged from the flames, wielding a hidden weapon, resolutely declaring that he would not succumb to fate without a fight. Anger ignited within the mage, who retaliated with venomous words, but the protagonist's heart sank as he fell, pain racking his body. With a mocking laugh, the mage placed his foot on the protagonist's head, relishing the irony of the situation, entertained by the idea of a dying fool. Just then, a colossal knife pierced the protagonist's back, blood spilling forth as he grappled with the reality of his impending demise. Is this how it ends? He mused, questioning the fairness of his fate and existence stripped of strength and agency. Amidst the chaos, voices clamored, demanding explanations. The mage, unrepentant, dismissed their concerns, taunting them with the futility of their situation. What can lowly creatures like you do? He jeered. While the protagonist wrestled with the moral weight of their choices, why did they dictate the value of life and death for others? An anomaly rippled through the dungeon, heralding the emergence of a hellish new boss. Shin grappled with a profound helplessness, as shadowy figures materialized before him, grim reapers, harbingers of fate. In the void of consciousness, he pondered his reality, questioning the significance of his existence. Awakening in a dark expanse, he surveyed his surroundings, confusion gripping him. Where am I? He wondered, enveloped in an unsettling darkness. A voice pierced the silence, identifying him as a player, beckoning him closer. Before him stood a diminutive structure, and as he approached, curiosity piqued his interest. Upon reaching out, he was met with a sharp bite, prompting a startled cry. A whimsical feather materialized, chiding him for his unwelcome intrusion. Pervert, it exclaimed. I'm no broom, I'm a feather, it insisted, revealing a sentient nature. The hero, taken aback, grappled with the absurdity of a talking feather, which introduced him to a peculiar system. What is this place? He inquired, bewildered by the emptiness surrounding him. The feather, dismissive of his confusion, pointed out the looming gates of the underworld behind him. Realization washed over him. He comprehended the gravity of his situation. The stark revelation of his death settled heavily upon his shoulders, memories of the past flooding back. In that moment, he was enveloped by the haunting memories of his demise within the confines of the dungeon. Clutching his visage, he succumbed to the ground, unleashing a primal scream, his fists pounding the floor in a fit of despair. Feather, his enigmatic companion, chided him for his outburst, reminding him that they were in a public venue. Did he not comprehend? Yet, all he yearned for was redemption, a simple aspiration to return to the life of an ordinary adventurer. Was that truly too much to request? Feather regarded him with pity. After all, his existence had been rendered meaningless. There was no longer any pretense to uphold. He could discern that he had been dead for an eternity. Enough lamenting, Feather insisted. It was time to venture forth into the unknown. Surprised, he inquired about this inside. The gate swung open, and Feather urged him onward. What fate awaits me? He queried. Feather assured him that acceptance of his demise was paramount. As they crossed the threshold, he took in his surroundings and noticed a pervasive darkness. Feather assured him that clarity would soon dawn. Suddenly, the lights illuminated a vast chamber before them. He gasped in astonishment at its enormity. "This resembles a giant's palace," he exclaimed, only to be met with Feather's irritable admonition to cease his gawking and hurry along. His mind raced as he surveyed the area, which bore an uncanny resemblance to a dungeon. A colossal suit of armor caught his attention, prompting a startled inquiry about its significance. Feather snapped at him to show reverence for the remains of Lord Yama. "Lord Yama," he echoed, the name stirring a memory. Feather, exasperated, elaborated that upon death, souls journey to the underworld to confront the consequences of their earthly actions. The malevolent are condemned to hell, with Yama, the ruler of this realm, presiding over the judgment of souls and commanding phantoms. A flicker of recognition sparked within him. He recalled the deity from ancient lore who chronicled lifespans. "Lord Yama, you say?" His incredulity flared as he confronted Feather. How could the sovereign of the underworld meet his demise? "This is preposterous," Feather retorted, incredulous that anyone would fabricate such a tale. "Does this imply I am a ghost?" he shouted, grappling with the absurdity of his situation. Feather directed his gaze to a wall inscribed with ominous text, instructing him to decipher its meaning. Yet, he found it inscrutable. The characters seemed to narrate a tale of Yama's downfall, depicting a fierce battle that culminated in his beheading, his remains interred beneath a monument in fresco, laden with grievances and curses aimed at him. As he processed this information, a board manifested before him, announcing a solo mission to discover the true head of the King of Hell amidst a multitude of false ones, with a time limit and the promise of a potion capable of healing all wounds. "What is this?" he exclaimed, bewildered. Feather insisted that this was his path to reclaiming life. "Wait," the hero interjected, grappling with the reality of being dead. Feather clarified that he was merely half dead, but had accepted his fate with surprising alacrity. As they delved deeper into the chaos of heads surrounding him, panic surged within him. "What are all these heads?" he screamed. Feather chuckled, relishing the unfolding spectacle. "Finding the genuine one won't be easy," he teased, but the hero determinedly resolved to sift through them one by one. Feather pointed out that one of the heads was indeed Yama's. "What's the strategy?" he pondered, disheartened by the overwhelming number. As he rifled through, he sensed that the mission window concealed crucial hints. "Why did I die?" he lamented, only to be met with Feather's relentless prodding for answers. "You were an adventurer, remember?" Feather quipped. Ignoring the jibe, the hero scoured the heads, eventually lifting one to examine it closely. The inscription read, "Lord Yama, even in death, gazes defiantly at his adversary, a scar marking the final blow." "Is this correct?" he asked, his heart racing. Feather urged caution, warning him that he would soon discover the truth. But as the head ignited with a ghastly glow, it screamed in protest. The hero recoiled, dread creeping into his veins as the head exploded, sending him tumbling into the heap. "Well, there you have it," Feather smirked. "You were mistaken." The hero seethed, contemplating what he had overlooked. The inscription hinted at Yama's visage, perhaps hinting at something more grotesque. "There must be another option," he declared, determination igniting within him. Feather seized a megaphone and declared dramatically, "In the name of morale, I shall reveal a secret. There exists a time constraint and a need to vanquish unwelcome entities in this dungeon." He explained that their accidental deaths had activated a system designed to eliminate threats. "Wait," the hero interjected, a flicker of concern washing over him. "Are my friends in peril? Are they truly battling against this darkness?" Memories of his comrades flooded his thoughts, and urgency propelled him forward. He needed to act swiftly, their lives depended on it. As he resumed his frantic search, a glimmer of hope emerged. He spotted a head that seemed different from the rest. "I found it," he proclaimed, only for it to erupt in a violent explosion once more. Despair gripped him as he reeled back, realizing he had been incapacitated for 20 minutes. 20 minutes, he gasped, disbelief etched across his features. Feather reiterated that time was slipping away. A newfound resolve surged within him. How could a potion that cures all ailments exist? He mused, laughter bubbling forth despite the gravity of his situation. Feather's incredulity was palpable. "Are you jesting? Have you lost your senses?" he retorted, his voice laced with exasperation. The torment of dark dungeons was designed to ensnare players, pitting them against one another or presenting insurmountable challenges leading to inevitable doom. "Is there truly a demon lurking behind the portal, observing us?" he pondered, a shiver racing down his spine. Crouching against the wall, he lamented his foolishness for squandering this second chance. But as he steeled himself for what lay ahead, Feather's voice broke through his reverie, urging caution amidst the chaos. "What's happening?" the hero wondered aloud, his gaze darting around at the seemingly sentient heads. They bobbed and weaved as if in a weightless realm, prompting him to reconsider his strategy. "Speculation is futile, action must be taken," he resolved, throwing a head forward in a bold attempt to discern the truth. "Feather, is it possible the time hasn't expired?" he questioned, raising his voice in desperation. Feather's protests echoed in his ears as he scrambled for answers, determined to conquer the trials that lay before him. He uttered the phrase repeatedly, a mantra of sorts, before clenching his teeth in frustration. He pondered how he could prevent the truth from surfacing. What kind of demon has taken hold of him? He mused, bewildered by the ongoing struggle. Surrendering would have been a far simpler route. The prospect of return seemed utterly bleak. With no reason to fabricate lies, Shin turned and inquired why their conversation had taken such an unexpected turn. Feather, ever the stalwart companion, reminded him gently that kindness had always been bestowed upon him. He ought to remain steadfast, not to shift his gaze, but to stand in patience as time trickled away. The protagonist placed a hand upon his hip, a smile breaking through as he felt he was on the brink of a breakthrough. The frescoes adorning the walls held the secrets to the riddle, overlook even the minutest detail, and the solution would elude him entirely. Initially, he perceived this ordeal as merely an extra layer of security around King Yama's corporeal form. Though he could not decipher every inscription, he sensed the weight of the words, particularly in the concluding lines, "One day, hand in hand." This test was crafted for the individual alluded to in the text. King Yama could have ensnared him in a lethal trap, yet instead, he had concealed the genuine essence of the challenge within these walls. The true answer lay not just in the intellect of the puzzle solver, but also in the potential bewilderment that arose when one altered the vector of their journey. As he navigated through the heads, he queried the whereabouts of his final step. Gazing at the imposing figure before him, he mused on how to retrieve the king's head. Was King Yama truly as formidable as he appeared? Ascending seemed like an act of impertinence. He thoughtfully propped his chin on his hand, recollecting an elderly figure referenced within the text. The ultimate piece of this enigma surely tied back to him, only that individual could unearth the resolution. Feather ascended, interjecting with a reminder not to move. Was he heeding that advice? He had already resigned himself to despair. Forget it, he thought, bracing for his fate. The protagonist's gaze fell upon Feather, who, taken aback, questioned his fixation. Shin realized that respect from the adversary was an impossibility. He pressed onward, with Feather pursuing him, bewildered, asking where he was headed. With arms crossed, the hero bowed deeply, prompting Feather to protest vehemently. Was he still attempting to unravel the conundrum? Shin scrutinized his hands, contemplating whether this gesture had been fruitful. When he lifted his gaze, he questioned the lack of response. He regarded the head draped in regal robes, contemplating its origins. King Yama, sovereign of the Underworld, was he not deserving of such a reverence? Thus, he knelt, resting his hands upon the ground, lowering his head in deference to the king's armor. The fabric shimmered before him. King Yama, the ruler of the realm of the departed, was a puzzle in his own right. The hero remained oblivious to whom this test was truly meant for, yet he yearned for a shot at redemption. Suddenly, a board materialized, congratulating him on his completion of the trial. The effects of the men's pup took hold, illuminating his body. He marveled at his hands as a surge of magic coursed through him. He felt revitalized. Before him appeared another board, stating, "Old man's pact, the test is concluded." He had lived up to his promised specialization, Underworld trainee. Pondering the implications of this newfound designation, he questioned the significance of Old Man's pact. Feather materialized behind him, expanding in size, unleashing a fearsome screech. "Bastard! You'll be devoured alive." Shin turned, perplexed by the sudden aggression. Surely, he was imagining things. Yet, did the first entity not desire his success in this trial? Feather bared its teeth, and dread washed over him. Was this truly a dire situation? In the aftermath, Feather seized Chin, proclaiming that King Yana acknowledged his accomplishment. He had succeeded. He was now among the ranks of esteemed officials. Why, then, should he bear the burden of a novice? "Master, you must contemplate this," he insisted. "He won't repeat the mistake." The adventurer's thoughts flitted to the higher powers above, clouded with confusion. Everything around him felt like it was in flux. The colossal creature, Feather, insisted he must be expelled from this realm. All selection trials had concluded. Now, with no anchor, he had no recourse but to wager on this individual's journey. Adventurers, revered as the wealthiest of souls, often risked their lives for riches. Crowds thronged at the portals, clamoring for passage. Standing at the entrance, the protagonist heard cries echoing, "The portal is open! Make way!" They shouted for their children, their loved ones, voicing their agony as families lost members to the other side of existence. To return a body safely was a stroke of fortune. Shin jolted awake, hollering for release. The box opened, and he expressed gratitude. Feather, with tongue protruding and laughter in its voice, welcomed him back. Yet, when Chin struck at the feathered appendage, it questioned why. Moments later, Feather revealed that shortly after he departed the Gate of Death, a woman had discovered him, escorted by the men in black to this location. "Do you comprehend?" Feather exclaimed, incredulous. "Why did you strike me?" It protested, claiming injury. "I merely thought you had consumed it," Shin retorted, clutching his chest as though the weight of his past bore down on him. Surely, the security officer of the Adventurers Association must have sensed something amiss, given the prolonged absence of survivors. "Are there others alive besides me?" he inquired, and Feather replied that only 2 remained, but perhaps they should first vacate this place. Indeed, it would be peculiar for them to witness his return at such a time, he mused. As a morgue worker descended the elevator, humming a tune, corpses tumbled forth, one after another, and he expressed his weariness. He maneuvered the cart and lamented being placed at the center of blame. Shin dashed past him, only for the worker to shout, "Stop! Do you not know that you cannot run in a hospital?" Feather urged him to flee faster, and the worker indignantly retorted, "Do you even know where you are?" Rolling his eyes, he realized, "Oh, this is the morgue." Shin, gripped by trepidation, seized the worker and asked what course of action he ought to take. Feather's voice rang out, commanding him to run, insisting he wouldn't perish. In a flurry, the protagonist leaned the worker's body against the cart. Shortly thereafter, a girl occupied one of the benches, engaged in conversation over the phone. "Apologies, yes, they'll verify the list of the deceased. We'll sort it out." They performed admirably. Who could have foreseen this incident at the 5th level portal? Stealthily navigating by her, the protagonist envisioned the headlines, "A corpse escaped from the morgue." He would be unrecognizable. The girl glanced at her phone screen, seemingly oblivious, and Feather's voice broke through, "Not here." Startled, she turned, asking if perhaps someone was present. Moments later, the protagonist stepped into his apartment, where Feather questioned if he resided in such a dilapidated space. "Does something displease you?" he asked. Feather intoned that, in the Underworld, space was far more ample. Shin scratched his head, surmising that perhaps housing costs would be lower in that realm. Feather darted ahead, proclaiming there would be more room for the deceased. Then, the protagonist collapsed onto the bed as Feather inquired about his family. "I dwell alone, I have no parents," he confessed. "Where did you originate?" Feather prodded. "Did a stork deliver you?" Shin recounted that his mother and father were adventurers who vanished upon entering the portal during his youth, never to return. He had struggled to reconcile with their absence, waiting at the portal for their return. "Pathetic," Feather remarked, but then offered, "I can console you." Shin retorted, "Are you suggesting I use you as a toilet brush?" Bastard! Feather shot back. The protagonist gazed at his phone, perplexed. Strange, I can't find anything. Decades have elapsed since adventurers first appeared. Necromancers, the harbingers of the Lord Tank, hidden specializations have long been forgotten. He pondered whether this hidden role as an underworld trainee truly existed. Such a classification had never before materialized. Train, what an odd title. Perhaps I could evolve into a legitimate adventurer, but can I truly sustain this path? He tapped his chest, reflecting on the sheer improbability of his resurrection. Ascending from the first level again would be fraught with difficulty, and the competition among adventurers was fierce. Who could assure him that this fate wouldn't repeat itself? If I perish again, will I be resurrected once more? He contemplated, wrestling with the notion that these individuals carelessly exploited low-ranking adventurers, their hands stained with the blood of the fallen. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon their shoulders, yet they acted with reckless abandon. Will I manage to survive? He sighed, grappling with the complexities of his situation. In that moment, Feather flew toward a brush, scrutinizing it, and remarked, "This item bears a striking resemblance to you." Shin recounted how his parents' disappearance had rendered him a target for ridicule throughout his schooling, depriving him of companionship. Finally, he sat upright, declaring, "Enough of this. It's time to focus on honing my skills." He extended a finger forward, asserting, "Observe my skills." Yet, to his dismay, a system window failed to manifest. He observed others invoking this feature. Blockhead. Feather chastised. How could you possess skills at level 1? The protagonist retorted indignantly, "Everyone else has them. How would any level 1 individual enter the dungeon?" He implored Feather to refrain from meddling with his broom. "Do not fret." Feather reassured him, suggesting that as a celebration of his rebirth, the system would bestow a gift. "A gift?" he echoed, intrigued. A board appeared, issuing a mission. "Follow me with a weapon in hand to the Adventurers Association. Reward unknown." "Is this akin to a task?" he queried, and Feather replied they should proceed, referring to the broom as a little strong woman. The adventurer urged him to stow the broom, and after a stretch of time, they arrived at an imposing edifice. "Is this the Adventurers Association? Why has the system guided me here?" Upon entering, Feather marveled at the grandeur, only for the heroes to scream in alarm, "Hide! What if they spot us?" Feather reassured him, insisting that only he could see him. "Calm down, little one," he urged. "Why are we here?" The feathered companion suggested an excursion. "Why not? What wonders await us?" "Stop," the hero exclaimed, as they ventured into a chamber labeled the Awakening Zone. "Anyone who slays their first monster is deemed an adventurer." Feather crinkled his nose at the noxious odor, prompting the hero to endure as they pressed onward. "Is this vast space truly necessary for awakening?" he queried. "Anything could transpire here," Feather replied, "even food." The adventurer argued that the adventurer's essence could be discerned within these walls. Feather gazed upward, exclaiming in astonishment, "What's up there?" "Can you sense the magic of 100 portals?" the hero asked. Indeed, Feather confirmed, each branch of the association provided portals accessible to fledgling adventurers. Once the association was cleared, a report would be generated detailing the adventurers' loot, losses, and slain monsters. Exceptional performance could catch the guild's eye, leading to an invitation for training. Feather regarded him, noting, "You possess considerable knowledge for a level 1 blockhead." Shin clenched his fists, adamant that he would expel Feather from his presence. Just then, an armored figure brushed past him, prompting the protagonist to apologize. "Do you not realize you're obstructing the way?" Feather remarked, as Chin rubbed his sore shoulder. "I can hardly believe it," he muttered, while Feather insisted that he had merely employed a skill to assess his status. Shin, shaking off the dust, decried, "What can I do? I am level 1 now." As the dust clung to his attire, they exchanged glances, recognizing that the armored figure was also reporting to someone. Feather pondered aloud, "He doesn't seem particularly strong." "Strength lies not solely in the physical," Shin countered. Feather pressed ahead, questioning the significance of their endeavors. The world is on the cusp of change, it will soon be irrelevant. Suddenly, a board appeared before the protagonist, delineating the mission objective. He must select a dungeon from the association. The reward remained unknown. Choosing a dungeon appears straightforward, Shin surmised. Feather encouraged him to take it step by step toward their aspirations. Perched upon his shoulder, Feather prompted, "What are you waiting for?"